August 2025. The scheme is due to start construction later this year, and I look forward to launching that.
Unfortunately, I'm not part of Lions anymore.
Ms Finlay.
Chair. Noting, Minister, that you're relatively new and the CEO is also relatively new, given the previous commitment to community management of schemes, you talked about the importance of being prepared for irrigating seasons. There's been a number of irrigating seasons now where Whistle were given the impression that negotiations and discussions around their community management would be completed in preparation for instance, this irrigating season and last irrigating season. Given on reflection, with the work that you're doing, the engagement with Whistle, is it still the opinion of you, Minister, and of TI that community management is possible?
100%. In fact, it's not only possible, but it's vital.
Great. And so do you believe, with the nature of the engagement with Whistle now and with the steps required to be completed, that it is possible, and with the risks that you've talked about, do you think it's possible for Whistle to, if they go through the process and they submit reasonable documentation and commitments, that it is possible for Whistle to enter into community management of their scheme?
Yes, I do. And Mike, you might want to add your, I was going to say 2 bobs worth.
I certainly have an opinion on the matter, so thank you, Minister, and I appreciate the member's question. I concur with what the Minister's said. There's certainly time, obviously not for this irrigation season because it started, but for next irrigation season, for Whistle to complete the steps they need to under the Act, demonstrate their 80% threshold irrigator district participant acceptance, put in an application, give TI enough time to assess that, and mobilise Whistle in a way that we both agree that is best for them to
and
manage.
So knowing what you know about managing schemes, knowing what you know about Whistle, knowing what you know about the risks and what you're expecting from them through the documentation, do you think that it's possible and viable for Whistle to enter into community management and for there to be a positive relationship between TI and Whistle once they are in community management?
The question you ask obviously is dependent on the input and the report that Mr Sylvester's already spoken about. We haven't received that from the board yet. So I don't want to situate my appreciation on something that I haven't received. Sure. But it remains my principle that these systems can exist, this self-managed component is possible. In fact, it can work very well, and that's.
I'm not implying that this is happening in this case, but lots of people talk to. We are both similar, I think, in terms of being out on the ground, talking to people is how we do our job best, and so there's a lot of conversations, and I suppose I would hate to think that there is a more onerous application to community management, say in Whistle, than there might be somewhere else. So my next question would be, is the engagement that you're undertaking with Whistle, because although you haven't had other applications, there are definitely people watching this process to see if they would like to commence the process, would this be creating a model of engagement and a model agreement so that there would be consistency for any future schemes that might want to apply for community management?
Yeah.
Through you, Minister, I thank the member for the question. Yeah, absolutely, this is a model for an asset lease arrangement. There's probably 3 different levels of community management or community engagement a community group could have. From the asset lease perspective, where the community group is also responsible for asset strategies and asset life cycle strategies, so they're bringing in that balance between proactive maintenance, reactive maintenance, and using their judgment to get that right.
Because the Minister would know that farmers do that every day.
There is a
Don't you love it when she does that?
Well, that's not something that farmers don't do already. So
please continue, Mr.
Sorry,
couldn't help
Chair.
myself, Chair.
No, I acknowledge the question, and it needs to be done commensurate with the risk of publicly owned assets, and thinking about the public use of the facilities around Winnaleah with Blue Derby Bike Park and tourism and everything else like that. That asset strategy piece is actually really important because it affects people more broader than just the farming community or the irrigator community. So that's one model, being an asset lease that encompasses asset strategy. There's another model around operations and maintenance only, and then there's probably a third model around operations only. And the further you get away from the asset strategy, the less impact, the less innovation, the less creativity, and the less flexibility community groups have. So our starting point with Whistle is absolutely to acknowledge their long-standing history with those assets and that district, all the experience that they have, and offer them an asset lease. It is certainly not more onerous than the responsibilities bestowed on Tas Irrigation for managing those assets. And in fact, I would go so far as saying it's less, because we haven't delegated.
So where it would be less?
An example of where it's less is the fact we haven't delegated the responsibility of the dam.
Outside the dam?
Outside the dam, it's probably quite similar.
Minister, if we can move on, we've only got about 10 minutes to go. I want to move from the beautiful northeast back to